So we talked a bit in the introduction about sort of some of the particular issues and stress that can affect carers. I mean, what are some of the sort of common themes that you've encountered in your practice?
Yeah. Well, across the country when I do training events, we often talk about the fact that there are more and more people coming in to look for counselling, psychotherapy, or general support, where one of the dynamics is the stress of caring.
Right.
That is becoming more prevalent.
And why do you think caring particularly kind of brings a lot of stresses with it?
Well, the complexity of the relationship. I mean, dealing with a human being is a complex thing, no matter what your relationship is with that person. And then because you're a human being, you have your own issues, life history, own ambitions, your own aspirations, your own educational record or ambition, your work life, and that's being synchronized, or maybe it's out of sync with the person you're caring for. So it's two individuals, makes the complexity. But the reason why I think it's becoming more prevalent in counselling discussions is because more and more people are becoming carers.
Right.
You know, it's an important part of anyone's life if they are a carer, and there are just more and more people coming into that particular role as the population gets older, as medical advances mean that certain illnesses previously which were life limiting are now able to be extended. People can live much longer with certain chronic ailments. Many more ailments and chronic difficulties medically previously needed to be treated on an inpatient basis, possibly on a long-term
More
basis.
people are being looked after at home,
Absolutely.
looked after by families.
Yeah, and it's partly linked to a whole range of changes in medical practice, including, but not limited to, the fact that certain drugs are longer lasting, injections can be done locally with a nurse rather than with a hospital. So a whole range of things mean that more and more people are in the community and getting care from on a daily basis from someone who lives with them in different ways.
And I suppose that the role of the carer is an interesting one, because whereas most roles people may anticipate or apply for if you think of a normal job, whereas the care role can suddenly be thrust on people,
Sure.
and often at relatively short notice. I remember when my mum became quite ill with cancer, the care in the hospital really sort of broke down, and as an interim we just had to move her home, and I moved in to basically become a 24-hour carer, and that lasted a few weeks. And although I was very happy to do it, within a couple of days, all of a sudden that was sort of my full-time role, and having to juggle kind of job, finances, rearrange kind of family and so on.
Absolutely. And one of the things which carers experience, which affects their own psychological well-being, is they often have to act as an advocate or an agent on behalf of the person with the illness, and has to navigate the sometimes complex bureaucracy of healthcare services, and inter-service communication isn't always perfect, and trying to just deal with that. And sometimes some ailments impact on communication, and so you have to communicate on behalf of the person being cared for. In terms of the complexity of impact on a carer, we do know that almost half of carers report a serious impact on their own mental health and well-being. We know that there is also an impact on physical well-being, often caused by lack of sleep, or not being able to keep fit, not being able to manage a healthy diet, etc. Impact on work, often because they can't always engage in full-time work, or the opposite, they're not able to take on overtime or work flexibly at short notice in the way that maybe they otherwise would be able to do. Impact on social relationships. Many young people report that they're not able to have the sort of romantic relationships that they see their friends and peers engaged in, because they are devoted to caring for an individual, not necessarily 24/7, but they're an important part of the caring. And again, for young carers, increasingly now, people are going to university and higher education, apprenticeships at a later age, so it's affecting more people. More people under 30 have unmet educational aspirations, and people who are carers report that they've had to put educational ambitions on hold. Sometimes they've already done a degree or done A-levels and they want to go to the next stage and they're putting the next stage on hold. There are ways around that, but that frustration about not being able to get on with your life is quite a powerful one for anyone. And it does mean that you get a complex set of interactions. So sometimes, if you're not able to work as much as you want, there's not enough money coming in, then that makes it even more difficult to pursue an educational ambition, for example. Because if you're in work, sometimes your employer will pay for your education. So if you're not in work, you're running out of options in terms of looking after the education.
I think it's really important to recognise just how widespread that problem is. And
yes.
Part of the reason we focused on this particular course on anxiety and depression is those seem to be the two most commonly reported aspects in terms of the impact on people's mental health.
Absolutely. You do get this situation where the individual feels anxious or depressed, and everyone's different, but there's a kind of a tension between, on the one hand, thinking, oh my goodness, I feel so depressed because of the situation I'm in, and I cannot be the carer I need to be. I lack motivation, I'm not sleeping, I feel miserable all the time, I don't want to do some of the things that my loved one wants to do, and they feel really guilty about that. Other times they feel as though, gosh, I wish there was something that could be done. I wish the National Health Service would just help me out a bit more. And so it's not resentment. It's just everyone has a huge reservoir of patience and compassion for people that they love. It's not the person that is causing the anxiety, it's the situation, it's the individual sense of, I'm the one who can help them, no one else can. I do what I can and I do a good job, but I can't do everything that I need. And sometimes I feel as though if I could just recharge my batteries, I could be a better carer.
And it's like you were saying earlier, that feeling of control.
Yes.
If people feel that they're not in control of it, that it feels helpless, that they can't particularly see an end in sight, that can all add to those feelings, compounded by guilt.
Absolutely. And of course, many carers are caring in isolation. And I think it's important to help everyone who is a carer to recognise that their experiences are not unique. Many people feel these multiple psychological strains. They do experience the impact on their physical fitness, their mental health, their work, social, educational aspirations. They do all come together. The other thing to bear in mind, of course, is the psychological toll of watching your loved one maybe deteriorating. And many disorders are just degenerative, and things will get better a little bit, but will generally get worse over a period of time. So quite apart from the stress and burden of caring, you have the sadness of watching a loved one become less and less mobile, less and less lucid, less and less able to help you. And that's one of the things which I think is psychologically, it creeps up on an individual, that the husband-wife, for example, the relationship has been inevitably patchy. Marriages always are, but it's a two-way street, and they help each other. And if one of the partners, one of the individuals in that marriage is chronically ill and deteriorating, then that reciprocity does diminish, and that is very, very difficult to accept.
And I think that's a really important point, because the relationship dynamic, as you said, there may already be tensions and issues in all family and carer dynamics, but the nature of the relationship can change. So it might be that if you're looking after a parent, they've been looking after you, looking after your physical needs or your emotional needs. As you grow older, suddenly that's flipped on its head.
Sure.
And certainly I remember kind of looking after both my parents. There comes that point where actually you're looking after their physical needs, and you're looking after them in a way that, it's almost a complete role reversal, and that can be really difficult.
Absolutely. Certainly there is no end to the complexity around this, because some caring is done on a collaborative basis, often with two children, adult children of the individual being cared for. They might take it in turns to stay in the house, and that's a good thing in the sense of it shares the burden. It's a good thing because let's say the two daughters, it's often two daughters, can talk about it, and they have someone who they can share the experience with, they both understand. But it does lead to difficulties around negotiating the timetable, thinking about what happens if one has a chance to go to a new job in another location. It can lead to tensions. Collaboration's great and important, and it's something which people want to do their bit on, but there comes a point where the negotiation around the care pattern can become quite a difficult conversation.
I think you're so right, and sometimes people can be pulled in different directions with multiple caring relationships.
Yes.
So you could have someone who's, say, got young children, where you're caring for them, you're looking after them, but then also you've got other caring responsibilities, and sometimes those need to all clash. And those feeling of guilt, that feeling of, am I doing enough? Am I feeling overwhelmed? The number of demands on me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're absolutely correct in that. Working in education and working around the country in different sort of training events, there's so many stories of women in particular who've got 360-degree care responsibilities. They're caring for a parent, they're caring, as you say, caring for the child, and sometimes caring for friends and siblings in different kinds of ways. And I think it's really interesting as well, because society has a lot of stereotypes about what it is to be a good daughter, a good mother, a good wife, and a good sister. But there's nothing about what it's like, what it's like to be doing all those things at the same time. And it does mean that some women sometimes, under certain circumstances, are prone to feeling guilty because they're not dealing with everyone in that circle in the way they would want to. And it's also the case that, and this is not just for women in a 360 caring position, but for people who are individuals being cared for, who are capable of lucid judgments and are quite mobile and able to manage certain things, are not entirely dependent. There is a growing sense of, well, come on, you can do some of this for yourself, because as human beings, our tendency is to welcome and accept and absorb help from people we love, because it's an expression of love, and what kind of human being wouldn't want to engage with that? But as human beings, we sometimes allow it to grow and grow, and we start to surrender our normal contribution to that relationship. And that can lead to the carer saying, come on, you don't need me to take you to the park every day. You can do it yourself sometimes. I've got the kids to look after. And I thought, but you always take me to the park. I really enjoy that when we go together. And none of those bits of the conversation are false. All those bits of the conversation are true. But it's that sense of, oh gosh, now you mentioned it, maybe of course I can go to the park on my own sometimes. You're right, I'll do that. I'll do that more.
I hope you found this course helpful. At FCC, we're committed to providing courses and training for unpaid carers, and these courses are completely free. If you found this helpful, you could support our work in 3 ways. Please recommend it to any friends or people that you know that will benefit from the courses. Please consider sharing it on social media. And if you can, please consider donating. There are buttons on the website where you can donate £1, £2, £5, and every pound that you donate will make a huge difference by helping us make more and more care courses completely free to carers. Thank you very much.